Let me ask you something bold. What if everything we've been told about nursing homes is only half the story? We paint them as places of peace, care, and safety. But behind those freshly sanitized hallways and smiling staff, there's a quieter truth that few dare to say out loud. An unsettling reality that most won't talk about until it's far too late. This isn't about scare tactics, it's about real stories. Stories like Gerald's, like Margaret's. People who walked in with hope and left something far more important behind, their identity. This video isn't just a look behind the curtain. It's a wake-up call, a challenge to the assumptions we've all made, maybe even ones you're making right now. And if you think this doesn't apply to you because you're not there yet, think again. What you're about to hear might change the way you look at aging, independence, and the choices we make for those we love. And maybe for ourselves, too. Before we dive in, a quick favor: if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button and help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers. It's a small click for you, but a huge step for growing this channel and giving these voices the space they truly deserve. Back in my day, I decided when to wake up, sunrise or not, Gerald muttered, clutching the faded photo of his garden.
Now?
A buzzer goes off at 6:30 sharp. No matter if I've slept or if I'm dreaming of Ruth again. His roommate, Charlie, chuckled weakly. They even decide when I poop, brother. They call it scheduled assistance. It's wild, really. Imagine going from choosing your own breakfast, coffee strong as a punch or tea soft as a whisper, to being handed a bland tray you didn't even ask for. Freedom isn't always lost in one big blow. Sometimes it slips through cracks like this. Like deciding whether to wear the red flannel or the blue sweater. Then realizing both were picked out already. And yet, even with all that, Gerald still clung to the thought. Maybe tomorrow, just maybe, someone would let him choose for once. But that maybe started to feel more like a fading echo. Gerald, a staff member once said gently, "We need you dressed before breakfast today. Doctor's orders." The irony? Gerald had planned to sleep in, maybe read the paper in bed like he used to when Sundays felt sacred. But plans don't mean much here. Not when every hour's already mapped out on a laminated schedule taped to the wall. He remembered the smell of fresh paint from his workshop, how he could spend hours building birdhouses with no one rushing him. Now, he could barely pick up a book without someone checking if he was okay. It's for your safety, they'd say, but safety had a cost. Silence, stillness, structure. What once felt like support now felt like a leash. One night, as rain tapped against the window, Gerald whispered to Charlie, "I miss deciding when to take a walk." The halls were quiet then, the kind of quiet that speaks volumes. Charlie nodded, even if it was just down the street. That freedom meant everything. Their conversation hung in the air like smoke from an old pipe, heavy, lingering, impossible to ignore. There's something soul-wrenching about needing permission for the smallest things. About having to raise a hand to ask for water, like a child in school. And slowly, as days turned into months, it wasn't just freedom they lost, it was the right to feel like themselves. Yet, even stripped of choices, something deeper ached even more. At first, the visits came like clockwork. Every Sunday, like church bells. Gerald would wait by the front window, shirt tucked in, hair combed back, face lit up with hope. "My daughter's bringing the grandkids today," he'd tell anyone who passed, as if saying it out loud would make it true faster. And for a while it was hugs, laughter, that sweet smell of McDonald's fries sneaked past the nurse's station. It all made the sterile halls feel human. But then the Sundays slowed. One missed visit turned into two. "Sorry, Dad, work's been crazy." Gerald nodded, smiling for her sake. But inside, it felt like the silence after a goodbye that was never really said. "I don't blame them, Charlie," Gerald said one evening, staring out at the dusk. "They've got lives to live, I guess." Charlie, polishing his Old Navy pin, replied, "Yeah, but we're still alive too." That hit different. It wasn't that the love was gone, no, love had just gotten distracted. pulled in 1,000 directions by soccer games, job promotions, Instagram notifications. And so, the people who once lit up these residents' lives became stories. "My son's a lawyer," one woman boasted proudly, though he hadn't called in months. That phone, by the way, it still sat by her nightstand, charged, waiting, hoping. A small device holding all the weight of connection and all the proof of its absence. Gerald stopped sitting by the window eventually. "No point catching cold for ghosts," he joked, though his voice cracked. "That loneliness? It seeps in slowly, like fog under the door. You don't notice it at first, not really. But then it's everywhere. Meals are quieter. Birthdays are forgotten. Cards come late, if at all. And even when they do visit, there's this strange rush, like they're just ticking a box. 'Gotta get back,' they'll say. And sure," Gerald smiles, nods, says, "Of course." But every rushed goodbye chips away at something. And when that sense of being needed fades, something else starts to disappear too. Gerald used to fix everything. Broken chairs, jammed doors, toasters on the fritz, you name it. His hands knew the language of tools, and his mind lit up with every problem solved. "There's something sacred about making things work again," he once said, staring at his idle hands. But now? The closest he got to using his skills was helping a nurse change the battery on the remote. "They think I'm fragile," he muttered to Charlie. "But I'm just in use. You see, when you take a man who spent decades building homes, memories, futures, and tell him to sit, eat, nap, repeat, it doesn't just slow him down. It unplugs the very spark that made him feel alive." And it wasn't just Gerald. Tom, down the hall, used to carve wood so fine you'd swear it breathed. Now, he just stares at the blank TV screen, remote in hand, like it might eventually show something worth watching. "I miss the smell of sawdust," he whispered once, as if afraid the scent might vanish from memory too. "It's this quiet erosion, this soft unraveling, that no one warns you about. People talk about medical care and safety, but not the hunger to be useful, to feel needed, to contribute. Without it, the days stretch long and dull, each one bleeding into the next. And slowly, the sharp edges of a once clear identity blur into the beige walls around them." One afternoon, a young volunteer tried to start a craft session. "We'll make greeting cards," she beamed. Gerald looked at the glue sticks like they were foreign objects. "I used to build cabinets," he said flatly. The girl paused, then smiled gently. "Well, maybe you can teach us." But no one listened long enough for that. The class turned into a glitter mess and ended in 20 minutes. Gerald stayed behind, cutting clean lines into paper, not because he cared about the card, but because for a moment he remembered what purpose felt like. He missed that fire, that forward motion, and without it, well, the body starts to follow the mind's lead. Gerald used to walk a mile every morning. Rain or shine, his legs carried him with pride, down the block, around the park, sometimes even to the bakery where the owner knew his name. "Walking clears the mind," he'd say. But now? The farthest he walked was to the dining hall, 10 steps from his room. "Take it easy, Mr. Thompson," the nurse would chime. "Let us help you." And just like that, they helped his strength right out of him. One missed walk became 2. Then came the walker. Then the wheelchair. "It's like my muscles gave up when I did," he muttered, gripping the armrests like they were prison bars. You should have seen Margaret. Oh, Margaret, sharp wit, sharper stride. She used to lead the morning stretch group. "Just because I'm in here doesn't mean I'm of here," she'd laugh, bending farther than anyone else. But months passed and no one showed up for group anymore. The chairs stayed stacked. The music stopped. And Margaret? She stayed in bed longer each day. "What's the point?" she asked once, eyes fixed on the ceiling. That's the thing, when you're no longer expected to do things for yourself, your body listens. It softens, weakens, retreats. Like a fire untended. All it takes is time and stillness, and suddenly, the strong become the seated. Gerald started noticing the little things. Stairs he used to climb now looked like Everest. His hands trembled when holding soup, something they never did before. "Guess I'm resting," he joked, but the laugh didn't reach his eyes. It wasn't just about getting older. It was about how inactivity accelerated the decline. The mind says, "Why bother?" The body follows. There's no treadmill here, no lawn to mow, no sink to fix. Just long hauls and short walks. And as they say, use it or lose it. But when everything's done for you, meals served, bed made, shirts buttoned, it's not just muscle that disappears. Something deeper starts fading too. Gerald wasn't a proud man, but he did have his boundaries. "I've dressed myself since I was 5, he used to say. So when a young aide, barely older than his granddaughter, came in without knocking and began laying out his underwear, something inside him flinched. "Can I just—" He tried, but she was already talking about the next blood pressure check. Privacy? That used to mean something. Now it meant a curtain. A thin fabric barrier that did nothing to muffle sounds or shield the gaze of strangers. Gerald missed closing a door and knowing it would stay closed. Here, even your thoughts felt like they had an audience. Charlie, always the jokester, tried to lighten the mood. "At least in prison they get a cell of their own," he'd whisper, nodding to the shared bathroom. But underneath the joke was a truth no one wanted to say out loud. Dignity doesn't scream when it's taken. It sighs. It shrinks. It settles. From sponge baths with the door open to toileting schedules, it's not just about being seen. It's about being watched, monitored, managed. "It's for your safety," they'd remind. But at what point does safety start to suffocate? Gerald once tried to explain this to his daughter. Imagine never being alone. Not even when you want to cry. She didn't get it. How could she? There was one night, late, when Gerald rolled to the window, hoping to feel human again. He just wanted a moment. No nurses, no pills, no checklists. Just moonlight. But the sensor on his bed beeped, alerting staff he'd moved. Within minutes, the door creaked open. "Everything okay, Mr. Thompson?" a voice asked softly. He nodded, swallowing his frustration. It wasn't her fault. She was kind. But still it was his night. Or it used to be. The smallest things that once gave a man dignity, choosing when to rise, how to bathe, even how to grieve, had become group decisions. And once you give up those choices, it's not long before even the idea of freedom starts to feel like a memory. Gerald never meant for it to be permanent. "Just until I recover," he told his daughter when she brought him here after a rough fall. He had packed light, a few shirts, his favorite pipe, a book he never finished. But months passed. Then a year. "Soon," she'd say during visits. "Once we figure out the ramps at home. Maybe get that lift chair." Gerald believed her. At first. But then her tone changed. She started using phrases like, "What's best?" and "You're so well taken care of here." That's when it hit him. Leaving wasn't a matter of if anymore. It was a matter of never. Charlie had been through the same song and dance. "My kids promised to take me home once the basement was fixed," he said one morning, laughing without humor. Turns out that basement's been broken for 4 years now. The truth is, the longer you stay, the harder it gets. Your body softens. Your roots sink into routines, not chosen but imposed. Paperwork piles up. Finances get tighter. Adjusting the house becomes a someday plan, not a priority. And what started as a stopover morphs into a full-blown destination. One day you wake up and realize no one's preparing your room at home anymore. They're just storing your stuff in it. One weekend, Gerald asked his daughter, "What if I just came home?" She paused, too long. "Dad, I don't think you could manage the stairs. Or the meds." Or, he nodded before she finished. That was the moment. The one where he understood he'd crossed the invisible line. The one between recovering and residing. And you know what? It wasn't a dramatic shift. There was no big decision. Just a slow collection of tiny reasons, fears, conveniences, all stacked up until the door to freedom was too heavy to push open. And when you're sitting in that quiet, realizing no one's waiting for you on the outside anymore, That's when you start thinking about everything that came before. Before you go,
Take a breath.
because what you just heard isn't just Gerald's story. It's a reflection of a much bigger reality, one that might hit closer to home than we'd like to admit. Maybe you've seen a loved one go through something similar. Maybe you're asking yourself tough questions about your own future. Or maybe you're realizing that silence and routine can sometimes be more dangerous than chaos. Now, I want to hear from you. What part of this story hit you the hardest? What would you do differently? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading every single one. And if this video opened your eyes in any way, leave a like. Not for me, but for the people like Gerald, Charlie, and Margaret, whose voices rarely get heard. If you want more untold truths like this, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. And hey, don't stop here. There's another video waiting for you in the description and in the card on your screen right now. It dives even deeper into what families aren't being told when it comes to elder care. Trust me, you're going to want to see that too.